Unit 2 is about nutrition information and sorting out fact from fiction. On the slide, you see the logos for many of the media sites available to us. In this unit, we talk about what's fact and what's fiction when it comes to nutrition. Before we get to that, we start with an important fact that good, reliable nutrition information results from evidence-based science. It's validated through a series of laboratory trials, and that takes time. In the next few slides, we'll see how this works. In the first slide, a dietary recall was completed on a small group of stomach cancer patients. It was discovered that there were similarities in their food and beverage intake. So a question was developed by the researchers. Could a specific type of food intake lead to stomach cancer? So they designed an experiment to test this research question on animals. It's typical that nutrition research begins with animal studies. The researchers collected data on what happened to the animals when they ate the diet. Then they analyzed the findings. And since animals can't talk, how do they determine the findings? Well, they have to sacrifice the animals and study the effects of the diet on their organs. You may be familiar with this process as you probably dissected frogs in biology class. If the findings are considered by the scientific community to be significant or provide new information, they publish an article in a scientific journal. Sharing the results allows for other researchers to offer comments and suggestions that might impact how the research is to be continued. The next step is to conduct the same study or a similar one with human subjects. And you can imagine that much care is taken when research moves from animals to humans because of the ethics of experimenting on humans, which are different than the ethics of experimenting on animals. Also, there are differences in how humans and animals digest some nutrients. To make the experiment more powerful, the study may be designed so that it is a double-blind experiment, meaning that neither the researcher nor the human subject knows whether the subject is getting the treatment or the placebo. Subjects in the placebo group receive a treatment that looks the same but does not contain the substance or ingredient that's being tested. If these results are significant or provide new information, they too are published and then included in recommendations for the general public like us. An example of this type of research led to the dietary recommendations we now provide heart patients about decreasing saturated fat in their diets. Another type of research that provides us with important nutrition information is population studies. In population studies, a large group of people are followed over a period of years. During that time, they agree to have periodic physical examinations. They may be questioned about their medical history, dietary habits, environmental exposure, lifestyle practices, and health outcomes. The data from all these people is analyzed. In this type of research, the researchers are looking for relationships or associations between certain behaviors or life events and disease. One really good example of a population study is the Framingham study that was begun in 1949, and yes, I mean 1949. For over 70 years, data has been collected, and during this time, articles have been published about the results. Over time, the results and the recommendations have changed because the researchers have more years of data and/or they have more people to study. As you can imagine, some people have died since the study began and others have been added. This makes the data even richer and more useful. One of the outcomes of the Framingham study was the identification of risk factors for heart disease. As you can see from this past discussion, nutrition research can take a long time, and it can change along the way because the findings can change. That is one of the reasons that it is really difficult to sort out correct information from incorrect information. Throw in the internet and social media, where there are literally millions of sites with nutrition information, and it gets even harder. Media is all about what's sensational, what's trending. How can my website or social media site get more clicks, more likes? There are thousands of social media influencers out there. Maybe you've thought of becoming one yourself. Which influencers or sites provide nutrition information that's valid, accurate, and reliable? Sometimes it makes us consumers think that true nutrition researchers must be unreliable because they keep changing their story, or it takes too long for them to come up with the answer to our questions. But here's the deal. It's boring, but it's true. Nutrition information that is science-based has a better chance of being reliable. Testimonials are fun, and they grab at our emotions. Hey, I feel like that too, you say. But they may not be based on science. Advertising isn't based on science either, even if it says it is. Its purpose is to sell things. So at this point in the lecture, you are either bored or you wonder how you're supposed to complete the discussion board assignment for this week, because it asks you to figure out what nutrition information is worthless and what's okay. But before we get to that, a couple of things need to be mentioned here. First, why is there both good nutrition and junk nutrition in the media? That's because the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution relates to freedom of speech and the press and allows anyone to promote whatever they want, including nutrition and health misinformation. You probably didn't expect to hear about the U.S. Constitution in a nutrition class. Secondly, the U.S. Department of Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, regulates most nutrition and health-related claims on product labels, but the agency can't prevent the spread of health and nutrition misinformation that's published in the popular media. So it's up to us to do our homework and sort out the good stuff from the bad stuff on our own. Where do we begin this process? How do you become a better consumer of nutrition or a skeptical consumer of nutrition? Here's a place to start. First, don't believe everything you hear or read. Ask questions about the information source. Ask questions about the source's motives for promoting the information. Are they trying to sell something? Most important, check the credentials for promoters on the web or on social media. I think that it's especially true for TikTok and Instagram because we're so caught up in watching what's going on the video or listening to it or both that we just think, hey, it's cool, and we don't really know who's doing it, who's putting out that information. Here's some things you should be, as the slide says, wary of. Salespeople. Are they trying to sell something on this website? Nutrition experts, in quotations. What makes them an expert? Do they make claims without proving them? Do they use terms that sound scientific but they really aren't? And generally speaking, popular or mainstream sources, magazines, entertainment, TV, and the internet, and so forth, we have to be wary of. We have to do our homework even to a greater degree. And finally, if it's too good to be true, probably isn't worth your time. So you want to move on to the next site. Finally, who and what are fair game? In other words, Where can you find good sources of information, like what you're going to need for that assignment that you're going to do this week? Okay, first of all, internet site domains ending in .edu and .gov are good sources of information. Secondly, internet sites that don't charge a fee usually are a good bet, safer in terms of the information they provide. Internet sites that provide references to scientific articles, those are always really pretty good and to trust. If you're not sure about an internet site or social media post, visit www.quackwatch.org. There they will check out sites. You can ask them questions via email, and they'll tell you whether a site is good or not. Good sources of nutrition information are registered dietitians or registered dietitian nutritionists. Other health professionals may not be able to provide accurate nutrition information, excuse me. I know a lot of you are studying to be other professionals besides nutrition or dietitians, but you are learning lots and lots of things, and you may well be a good source of nutrition information, but not every one of those professionals like nurses, doctors, and so forth are always a good source of nutrition information that's accurate. Finally, I want to close with, who do you trust? If you need your car repaired, you find a mechanic, right? So if you need accurate, reliable, and valid information about nutrition, follow that windy path on the slide and end up seeking a dietitian, specifically a registered dietitian. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm really not tooting my own horn. I also want to say I may not be as exciting as Kim Kardashian, but I can find a good, solid answer for you if it's about nutrition. And I'm not the only one. There are some very fun and interesting registered dietitians on Instagram and TikTok. Be sure you take a look. That's all for now.